I want to take just 5 or 10 minutes to try to wrap up Greek for ministry, to give you a sense of the benefit of knowing how to use the tools of Greek. And I thought I would use 1 John 1 as an example. So, first let me read what I'll do is I'll read the Greek, and then I'll use the analysis and the interlinear to try to get a sense of the meaning. And this is the meaning that you can get from Greek without knowing all the forms, but being able to use the free tools that are available now. So, in Greek, this is ho ein aparkes. What is ho? Ho is a relative pronoun, which is who or which or that. When it's neuter, you can see from the end there. So I'm going to go with a translation something like what. What ein, what was, or that which was. This is a verb, it's past tense. Probably not a deep nuance to it. I know it is imperfect. See that I means imperfect. But since there isn't as much of a variety of, now this is what I do know because I know I've done Greek the old-fashioned way. I know that there aren't as many options for the verb is in the past tense. So for example, there's no aorist of is. So there probably isn't a deep meaning to the word was, but I don't have to know that ein is the word was because the interlinear tells me it is. So what was aparkes? Ap is a preposition that means from, and arcase is a noun that means beginning. There's no the there. That's okay. Sometimes in English you have to put a the that isn't there in Greek, and sometimes in English you have to take away a the that is there in Greek. But from the beginning, this has to do with kind of the time component here. What was from the beginning? Now, next line. Ho akekoamen. What we have heard. Akekoamen, let's look at that very briefly. Ho is another relative pronoun. But this is a verb that R tells me it's perfect. The connotation of the perfect tense is usually something that is completed with the results continuing. So what we have heard. We heard it, and it has stayed heard, as it were. And this is significant, I think, especially when we go, for example, to the next line, ho he'orakamen, tois ophthalmois hemon, what we have seen with the eyes of us. Again, we have seen is a verb that's in the perfect, just like akekoamen. And again, the sense is that we saw it and that the seeing has stayed with us. It remains seen. Why is this significant? To me, it's significant because I believe that the author of 1 John is indicating that he saw Jesus, that he was an eyewitness of Jesus, that he heard Jesus, that he saw Jesus. This is significant when it comes to reconstructing the history of the New Testament church, that the author of 1 John, which is anonymous, the book of 1 John nowhere indicates who its author is, but whoever the author of 1 John was, let's call him John, he seems to be claiming here that he was an eyewitness of Jesus. He saw Jesus, and moreover, the perfect tense here, you don't use the perfect tense in these contexts unless you want to add meaning. There, like we've said throughout this course, the aorist tense is the default Old Testament past tense kind of tense. And so if he just wanted to say we saw him, he'd have used the aorist. The fact that he used the perfect implies that there is special meaning here. And the meaning is he saw it, he heard it, Jesus that is, and it stayed with him. With the eyes, it's telling how he saw it, or the means by which he saw it, a dative of means. With the eyes of us, it's his eyes, so it's a genitive of possession. He owns his eyes, so to speak. Okay? What ho ethasamatha, what we have beheld. Now, this is aorist, so he has just gone to the aorist here, and he simply is saying thereby that he saw it. It is middle, that's what that M means, but I don't know that there is any special meaning there. Sometimes the middle is just the way they used the word. Kai hai kaires hemon epsilaphisan, and the hands of us touched, handled. Again, he's gone to the default aorist. This is nominative, hai kairos, so it's the subject. The hands of us, genitive of possession. They're our hands. The our here, I think, is probably somewhat of a. I don't think that John is saying that there's more than one of him. I think that's just a kind of a good style way of referring to himself. But again, he seems to be saying that he has touched Jesus. He has known Jesus personally. Peri tu logu tes zoes, concerning the word of life. Interlinearbible.org has decided to capitalize the logos, the lambda in logos, which is an interpretive decision, since of course originally all the letters were capital and in continuous script. But this is a genitive of reference, I guess you would say, concerning the word, in reference to the word. Logu is genitive. Of life, what word are we talking about? We're talking about the word about life, and probably that may also be a genitive of reference, the word with respect to life. There are other words, but the one that John is talking about is the word of life. Verse 2, Kai he zoe ephanerothe, and the life was manifested. Again, straightforward nominative, that's the subject. Straightforward aorist passive that just says, it was made clear. Kai heorakamen, a perfect. We've seen it, and it stayed with us. Kai marturem rumen, and we are witnessing. Present tense again. There is a sense of probably more of a sense of continuous flavor there. This is something that it has stayed with us, and as it has stayed with us, we witness to it. We are witnessing to it as a result of the fact that we have seen it, and the seeing has stayed with us. Kai epangelamen, and we are proclaiming it. Again, continuous default nuance there. Humin, to you. I suppose is that a direct, indirect object there? Yes, I think it is. Tain zoane, we are proclaiming to you the life, the eternal. That's an attributive construction. The life, the eternal. Ionion is telling us about, as an adjective, telling us about life, a noun. Life is the direct object. We are proclaiming life to you, and to you is the indirect object. Hatus, that's a fancy schmancy kind of relative or indefinite relative pronoun, I think is what we call it, which was proston patera, which was with the Father. That's probably a less common use of the preposition pros, which normally means to, but it is, by the way, the word that's used in John 1:1. And so here we see a stylistic similarity between 1 John and the Gospel of John. It will not be the last. That seems to imply that there is some commonality of authorship between 1 John and the Gospel of John, which also happens to be the tradition. The Father here is the object of this preposition, with the Father, or with respect, or maybe actually this has to do with more of a maybe accompaniment with the Father. Usually the dative would be used for that, but hey, language does what language does. Kai ephanerothe hemin, and was manifested to us. Verse 3. Ho hearakamen kai akekoamen apangelomen kai humin. What we have seen, and it stayed with us, and we have heard, and it stayed with us, both of those perfect. We are proclaiming, present tense, also to you, in order that, purpose clause. I know there's going to be a subjunctive verb somewhere here, because hina takes the subjunctive, and there it is, ekite. Hina kai humes koinonian ekite meth hemon. In order that also you fellowship might have with us. Purpose clause. Why is he announcing it? He's seen it, it stayed with him. He's heard it, it stayed with him. He is proclaiming it to them now. Why? He's doing it in order that they might have fellowship. In order that y'all, plural you, again, can't always tell whether it's a singular or plural in the English. This is a plural y'all, second plural, might have fellowship with us, first person plural. Kai he koinonia de he metera meta tu petros. And the fellowship, de usually comes after it's supposed to go, so maybe with two ands, maybe we should go with an, and they have and here, but maybe we should go with an also, and get our and from the de. And he koinonia, and the fellowship even, let's go with even, that seems to fit. And even the fellowship we have with the Father, and then he metera is a adjective that tells us about the fellowship. It's our fellowship. That's another attributive construction. The fellowship, the our. Again, Greek can divide things up. Kai meta tu hu autu, and with his Son. It's not only, our fellowship is not only with the Father, but our fellowship is also with his Son, namely Jesu Christu, Jesus Christ. The reason Jesus Christ is in the genitive is because it is telling us about Son, and that's called apposition. And so the genitive has no special meaning there. It's just in genitive because it's telling us about a word that's genitive. Kai tauta graphomen hemes, hina ke kara hemon a. And we are writing these things to you. Hina, in order that, okay, there's going to be a purpose or result clause here. There's going to be a subjunctive somewhere, and there's the subjunctive. In order that our joy might be peple romene, might be having been filled. That's a perfect passive participle. So we have a, remember, a periphrastic construction. Our joy might have been fulfilled, and stay filled. Again, the perfect tense implying an even more continuous sense of fullness from the past till now. He's writing so that the joy can stay full. So there you have 4 verses. I've gone longer than I wanted to. I'm already at almost 13 minutes. But let me just suggest that the tenses, knowing something about Greek tenses, I think helps you understand some of these latter verses in the second part of 1 John 1. So if you look at 1 John 10, for example, down here, if we should say, that's a if, that's the third class condition, on with the subjunctive. If we should say that, hoti introduces a noun clause. Now you might not say this, but if we should say that we have not sinned, perfect tense, which means that if we were to say that we have not sinned at some point in the past, and that having sinned has not stayed with us in the sense that we need cleansing now. Now, again, he's not saying that if you appropriate the atonement of Christ, your past sins aren't forgiven. He is talking about a person who would say, well, I don't need Christ because I've never sinned. If we should say that we have not sinned and that therefore we don't need Christ's atonement. Sustain poiumen auton. We are making him a liar. Again, get that continuous flavor. We are making poiumen, him, to be a liar. Now, again, this doesn't apply to someone who has asked God or asked Christ to atone or appropriated the sacrifice of Christ, because if you've done that, then the sin has not continued into the present. So it's important to recognize that John is talking about someone who denies needing Christ's atonement, someone who would say, in effect, I've not sinned in the past. And so when we now return to 1 John 1:8, we get a better sense of what it's saying. If we should say, on with the subjunctive, third class condition, takes a subjunctive verb. If we should say that, noun clause, sin we do not have, or sin we are not having, This is the present tense version of verse 10. It doesn't say if we should say that we're not sinning. That's not what it says. If we should say that we do not have sin in the present, because we have, as it were, never sinned, down in verse 10, if we should say that we do not have sin that needs to be cleansed, haautus planomen, reflexive pronoun, and a present tense verb, we are deceiving ourselves. Get that continuous flavor in there. Again, he's not talking about the person who has appropriated the sacrifice of Christ. He's talking about Docetus, who have basically said Jesus didn't come in the flesh. He came by water, but not by blood. Later on in 1 John it'll talk about that. We don't need the atonement of Christ. We don't need Christ to be physical. The Christ has not come in the flesh. Remember that? Later on he will say that those who believe that Jesus hasn't come in the flesh, they are false teachers, so to speak. So knowing these tenses and these basic grammatical constructions is quite helpful to becoming a better expert at understanding the meaning of the New Testament. And again, you don't have to have the forms memorized to know these things if you have learned the basic tools and categories that we've presented in the Greek for Ministry class. Thank you.